Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today I welcome you to UFO Entity Encounters. Our theme for today is Tales of the Venusians, and we have a wonderful panel of people. We have Tillie, Treadwell,
Hello.
we have Brian Walker of Brian's Drive-In Theater.
Good evening.
We have the ever cosmic Marc and Phyllis Brinkerhoff. We have the legendary Tim Swartz.
Hey, sorry, I was muted. I didn't know.
We have Nick Curto, Light Warrior, in his Light Warrior uniform, here from outer space. So we're going to go in order of the list that I had sent everybody about the program. And we will start with Nick Curto, Light Warrior, and he will tell us about the Venusian Val 4.
Okay, well, this is an incredible, absolutely incredible story, and it couldn't be more timely based on what's going on in the news right now, that we're all very aware of how bad it is and getting worse by the minute, unfortunately. And so this is incredibly timely, as you will see. Here we go, March 16, 1957, 8 a.m., a 300-foot spacecraft landed in a farmer's field in Alexandria, Virginia. Two local policemen quickly arrived on the scene with guns drawn, expecting the worst. Commander Val Thor emerged from the spacecraft and gently approached the police officers and politely asked to speak to the U.S. president. And a careful process of screening quickly followed, where he was asked to submit immediately, and he did. He was asked a wide battery of questions, and he answered every one of them in perfect English. Later, they learned that he could easily speak many of the world's languages very well. Val's silver-colored, snug-fitting, very modern clothes were soon tested with his permission by the military, and his clothes could not be destroyed in any way whatsoever. They tried but failed to put even a small hole in them, set them on fire, lasered them, or tear them apart. His one-piece uniform weighed 6 ounces, including the boots. No buttons, zippers, or any visible attachments were in his clothes or could be seen. When Val put on his clothes, they soon closed on his body as if by magic, and no one could see anything as far as fasteners. They were totally seamless. Val was then allowed to visit, which was one of many visits, the United States president. After transferring to an underground train, Val Thor sped forward to the White House. 6 officials, 6 armed guards, and 3 Secret Service men escorted him into the president's office. That was Eisenhower. Val represented the High Galactic Council, and his mission was to travel to planet Earth and to offer cutting-edge technical information on powerful new power sources that are totally non-polluting and can fully power the entire planet. Advanced medical data for the population, as they would live much, much longer and very, very healthy. Also new forms of growing food to feed the entire population, and much, much more. However, this major upstepping of the new age of plenty and enlightenment to our planet would be offered in exchange for all governments of the world and powerful groups worldwide to absolutely promise their total abstaining from all forms of weaponry and war, including nuclear and atomic bombs and weapons developed for war technologies. The High Council deeply felt that our planet was aggressively doing right now would lead to a total destruction of planet Earth and everyone in it. And these powerful weapons would also affect other planets and other planetary civilizations as well. And that was also another concern that they had, that these huge and very dangerous and powerful time warp wave destruction weapons must be totally stopped. Val was here to make contact with all those various groups worldwide for this proposed agreement. President Eisenhower then ordered Val Thor to be allowed to stay in DC and to travel to any places that he wanted to. And he should be housed in the Pentagon in a private suite and given VIP status. And he could stay as long as he wanted. He ended up staying full 3 years. Val worked for the government scientists also, and putting a man safely into space for peaceful purposes. Dr. Wernher von Braun once made a statement, quote, "I can't say anything more, but I can tell you that we have had help from people of other planets," unquote. And that statement was made when Val Thor was there. At one point during his stay in April of 1957, Val and his wife and crew traveled to the home of Howard Messenger, a researcher of UFO and phenomenon. And he was greeted very warmly there. And there were many photographs that were taken of Val and his crew as they were there for the whole afternoon. Incidentally, the town of Highbridge is now planning a special weekend celebration of Val Thor and his crew's visit, and that will be now planning for the summer of 2024. At the end of his outreach 3 long years, he was told that the final decision has been made, and the answer, unfortunately, was a firm no. They could not agree to what Val Thor and the High Council wanted.
And we have 2 minutes, Nick.
Oh boy, it's such a story.
I'll have it to be continued. There will be a part 2. So
Absolutely, it's such an incredible story, and again, timely. I mean, what's going on in the Ukraine right now, what Russia is saying right now, and unequivocally saying that war and the use of nuclear weapons is on the table now. And some of in fact, there's a general right now, I cannot think of his name, that just came on TV, and he said this is more serious than you can possibly imagine, and that we are in a place we've got to get this war stopped and no more killing at all. And so it's vital that this happens right now. And of course, Val Thor's consul could foresee this happening. So it couldn't be more timely. And people need to research this more carefully about what is going on right now. The doomsday clock is about one tiny fraction of before 12, which is the doomsday time. It's never been closer to 12 than right now. Again, it's a major concern.
let's hope we never get there, and
boy.
continue this conversation definitely. Thank you, Nick. Nick is a founder of the New York Disclosure Network and also a luminary in the Urantia book reading group in New York City. We'll get his contact information at the end. But thank you very much, Nick, for this presentation and for all you bring to the table.
More than welcome.
And now we go to Marc and Phyllis Brinkerhoff, who have had direct experiences, personal experiences with the Venusians. Hi, Marc, how are you? You're muted, Marc.
I'm making faces because you said that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Nice to see everybody. I keep muting because I don't want background sounds or anything.
Understood. Thank you for considering it.
Nick, that was great. I'm sure Valiant Thor thanks you. I've had experiences with actual Venusians, and Phyllis and I have been out of body on Venus, gosh, back in 1978, and we saw amazing things. This is out of body in our forms that we look like this. And this is a Venusian looking form actually, but not always. So a typical Venusian form for male would be similar. Now everybody has different color hair, but this is Ashtar, and he takes on the form he had when he was on Venus back 5,000 years ago plus. So I just wanted people to get an idea of how they kind of appear. They have tan skins, different kind of tone skins, just like we do here. And they have, again, people have seen a lot of blonde haired ones, but they're all the same shades like we have, from dark brown to black, every color hair. So we can't just say all Venusians are blonde or Nordic looking. They look similar to Earth people as well. So they could fit in pretty closely walking on the planet Earth with us. They are different sizes too, anywhere from 6 feet to taller and also shorter. So we have 5 foot, we have 6 foot, we have different sizes like that. Now in the higher realms, when you start getting off of different levels and different planes, or actually levels, you're going to get taller beings, 7 feet and all. So I've worked with different Venusians that are 7 foot. And I've met in the fields upstate New York, where I had my encounters with a couple of beings there. I saw one in the field with me that was about 7.5 feet tall. I had a scout ship hover over me that looked crystalline, similar looking to the George Adamski scout ships that we saw, we all know about. That style of ship is over 5,000 Earth years old. It's still used today in the scouts. You'll still see some of them flying around. And Nick mentioned what Valthor's spacesuit was like. That's exactly the way the suits are. I've had them on the other side. They're very lightweight. They regulate temperature in your own body, whatever planet system you're from. It'll be fine with your energy in your field of, let's say, body heat. And some planets are cooler, so some of these suits will work like that, making you warmer. The boots many times are with the suit, attached in some way, and yet still they sometimes have ones that pull on, just like we would think in a space movie or something. But a lot of times when Valthor might have had were the ones that are with the suit. They look like they're separate, but they are actually with the spacesuit itself. And on the ships where I'm from, these actually look like that. They do go with the suits, and sometimes they look like they're pulled on. So it's both. It's both. And they're so lightweight, they body form the person's body, as you can see, this kind of look. They form the body. Sometimes they can be a little loose. If you want it to be that way, it'll be loosened if you're moving a lot. I'm trying to think of some other things. The fabric itself is not like Earth fabric. It's got iridescent particles in it that are of another metallic form of metal that's on their sides, not our side, but it looks sparkly like dust, like gold or powdered silver. So when you look at it, it reflects and sparkles. It shimmers. Yeah, if you look at the spacesuit itself, now I don't know anyone talking about this because I've looked at them close up because I've had them on. When you look at them on you, they have the honeycomb effect and pattern of the fabric. Very fine, tiny little fabric. But when you look at it really close, you will see it's a pattern that looks honeycomb-like, and it's all combined like that. And that gives part of that reflective effect. And also is impenetrable. So if they're shot by a bullet, normally they've been going into their body. There have been other beings that have landed on the planet that I've heard stories of back in the early 70s that had an experience where a person shot at them, a group of them, and one got hit and fell down. And one of the aliens said to the man shooting them, "Why the hell did you do that?" So they rescued their friend. See, these were humanoid people. They look like people, like Earth people. They had long hair to their shoulders, and they're about 5'3", 5'6" at the most. And the one that was shot was a male. And so it was 2 guys that were hunting or something, and came across this landed spaceship, and the men were standing by it. That's an old story. That's from the 60s and 70s. But it just showed that they were wearing a suit that was like Earth people wearing a spacesuit. It could get shot with something. These beings, this is me when I'm out of body. Again, that takes on a sort of a look of a Venusian with blonde hair, elongated eyes many times. And that look is similar in space. That's our the look that we have, which we call the Adamic look, the Adamic race. And Ashtar is part of that. And so
I'm sorry to interrupt, but the Pleiadians have been compared to the Venusians in the way they look.
Yes.
So is that a result of the Adamic race?
Yes.
Okay.
They're not exact. Some, okay, we're going to go into something else. Some Palladian beings calling themselves coming from that direction of Pleiades area in space with many planets and many star systems have human bodies like us. They just look a little different now because they have been there since when Atlantis fell, when they were rescued and taken to other planet systems. And then they moved in with the beings that were there on the planets, were human and human-like, and they could meld in. So many of some of these people that came to Earth maybe 20 years or so ago had said, we are like you, we are human like you, our ancestors are from Earth from when Atlantis was here. So those are the people that went to the other planet systems. So a lot of these people from the other beings in the systems of Pleiades are human-like or human. So there are humans out there in space. Earth is not alone. So we do have humans and humanoids, which are human-looking, like these Adamic beings, like Ashtar, let's say, but they don't have all the organs that we have in our physical bodies here. So there's different levels of different species, and their chromosomes wouldn't be the same either, but their body forms look similar to human, and they are male and female, etc. You know? And there was a long time ago, back in the 60s, a group of beings came, and I think they were from the Pleiadian areas, although they didn't say where they were from, but they resembled them. And they went to Spanish, like South America somewhere, or to Mexico. And they went there and they met with some doctors purposely to show them that we are like you. So the doctors examined them physically, and they were saying, we are humans like you, you know, that kind of thing. And that was way back, like 50 years ago. But I'm trying to think of some other things. Phyllis and I have met the Venusians on a body, but the ones I've met physically here are my crew, but they're not Venusians, although some of the people working with them are from the Venusian families there. So
we're talking
first level here, like physical people like this. And when my crew comes in, like these guys, they could come in and form a physical body and work with us. And they're about 8 feet tall, 9 feet tall. So I'm trying to fast say what I can say. Anything else about
this will be a multi-parter, so
okay.
So we can't get to it today. We'll just pick up next time.
Okay, and one of the famous cities on Venus is Retz, where I've been, and we've been there very many times. And that's where Phyllis, I took her to see that city. So you'll hear that city called and quoted somewhere many times with Almanac and maybe other people doing Mount Shasta, shows and things. But that's a really beautiful city, and it's ancient. So really, really ancient.
Thank you very much, Marc. You are an elder in the alien community here in New York and very widely respected, and you've been doing this for a very long time. And I'm very excited to hear you have books that you and Phyllis are working on. And thank you for talking, Phyllis. It was wonderful.
He knows it all, so
I'm sorry.
I just listen.
She is such a okay. But she did experience things with me.
That's true.
So that's what's fun.
We did have
lucid out of bodies together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now onward to the legendary Tim Swartz, publisher of Zontar Press and longtime investigator and author of Things Strange and Bizarre. Greetings and welcome, Tim.
Thank you, Hercules. I appreciate you having me on today. And tonight I'll be talking about Kumaras in Theosophy. So, and I should add, by the way, that as you said, my publishing company is called Zontar Press, and that was lifted from a just absolutely terrible, terrible movie called Zontar, the Thing from Venus. So very appropriate for tonight's show. And, hopefully we'll be talking about that maybe a little bit later on in the program. But anyway, the word Kumara is a Sanskrit term which means a virgin boy or young celibate. So in Hindu mythology, the 4 beings, Kumaras, were created by Brahma and were expected to help in the process of creation. But like most kids, they had another idea on how they were going to live their lives, and instead refused to procreate and instead devoted themselves to celibacy and worshiping God. They are said to wander throughout the universe, without any desire except to teach. So now in modern theosophical view, the Kumara is a hierarchy of celestial beings which involves entities of different degrees of evolution. Madame I always mess up on her names, Blavatsky, wrote that the Kumaras are those who refuse to create, but who were compelled later on to complete divine man by incarnating in his senseless human shells to produce thinking, self-conscious, and divine men. So now Blavatsky also states that the truth revealed to man by the planetary spirits, which are the highest Kumaras, who appear on Earth as avatars, I think is how it's pronounced, only at the beginning of every new human race and at the junction of planetary cycles. Now remember that, the junction of planetary cycles. Now, there are some differences of opinion with, say, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Theosophy in regards to the Kumaras, especially with the figure of Sanat Kumara, who is said to be a master advanced to the level of deity and is regarded as the Lord or regent of Earth and humanity. So now Sanat Kumara is thought to be the head of the spiritual hierarchy of Earth and dwells in Shambhala at the center of the world. So Venus is regarded as the most significant and spiritually advanced of the planets by the Theosophists, as the morning star became a symbol of esoteric illumination and the dawning of a new spiritual era. Now, it was also said to be the home to advanced beings, including Sanat Kumara and others. Now, so Venus was also the home planet of the majority of the space people encountered by the early UFO contactees. So the beginning of the UFO contactee era came at the end of World War II, with new scientific discoveries and the development of space travel. This was a time when old religious beliefs were being questioned and replaced by new ideas about the cosmos and the realization that planet Earth may not be that special or even alone in the universe. So the worldview sightings, the worldwide sightings of strange things in the sky that appeared to be structured craft of some sort, seemed to confirm to many that not only were we not alone in the universe, but other intelligent beings were traveling across the vast distances of space to pay us a visit. So we have people like George Adamski, Howard Menger, and George Van Tassel, who came forward to claim that they had been recipients of secret visits from otherworldly beings, many who claimed to be from planets in our own solar system, with Venus being the most prominent. So messages delivered by these extraterrestrials, such as Ashtar and Orthon, represented a sort of modern repackaging of the 19th century's theosophy. Much of these messages dealt with warnings to humanity that we were at a junction in our evolution where the old ways were being replaced with science. However, even though we were advancing in science, our emotions, our egos were still too primitive to be trusted. We're warned that, especially with atomic weapons, we needed to embrace the space people's spiritual teachings so that we wouldn't destroy ourselves and even create havoc all across the solar system. So the Venusians, according to the contactees, lived in utopia where material desires were a thing of the past. No one needed money, as all of society contributed to everyone's well-being. There were no wars, no sicknesses. Venus was not only scientifically advanced, but spiritually as well, to the point that the inhabitants could be considered advanced beings bordering on being deities. These Venusians were very reminiscent of the beings that Blavatsky called the Lords of the Flame. As well, C.W. Leadbeater and Alice Bailey believe that the Lords of the Flame descended from the etheric plane of the planet Venus to Earth more than 18 million years ago. So the Lords of the Flame, like the space people, were often described as being young-looking, beautiful, and with a spiritual glow about them that could cause the contactees to fall to their knees and weep in their very presence. So, Hercules, I suppose the takeaway from all this is that the UFO contactees, did they all band together to create a story of advanced UFO beings based on early theosophical writings? Or did these visitations happen with no connections between the various contactees? Was it a coincidence that these contactees all seemed to surface around the same time? Or was there an actual phenomenon taking place at a certain point in mankind's history that either confirmed earlier spiritual beliefs or took advantage of them in order to advance a hidden agenda that we still find ourselves arguing about today?
Hmm.
And I'm going to leave it at that right now, Hercules. And I also want to just briefly acknowledge the passing of my brother-in-law, my sister's husband, Alan HEFLEY, who unfortunately left us all, too early, just recently. Now, Alan was a really good friend and a big fan of my work, and he and my sister produced two very beautiful daughters, who in turn gave them two even more beautiful granddaughters. So I just want to wish Alan well in his new journeys to whatever his destiny leads him to. And I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you. And if you send me his name, I will add it to the dedication for today's show with Timothy Green Beckley, who this series is dedicated to. I mourn your loss.
Thank you.
No.
That also reminds me really quick. Tim Beckley's niece sent me some photos this week showing that all of his files and material have been boxed up. Got 64 boxes in total, and are being sent to David Marler's UFO. Gosh, I can't remember the name of it now, but basically the UFO archives that he has right now, probably the largest UFO archives in the country, in New Mexico. So I'm just happy to report that all of Tim Beckley's years and years of work will not disappear.
That is very good to know, and I'm surprised. I have more boxes than Tim Beckley. Got to make sure I put them in archive so that when I'm gone, I can pass that on to them. Thank you, Tim. And the questions you raised are questions I'm going to attempt to be answering as we move forward. One of the things I'm doing here locally is called Theosophia Esoteric Studies. Theosophia is the Greek term for theosophy, and it was developed during the time between Alexander and Cleopatra and the first couple of Caesars. And at the time, a lot of the hidden information that people had behind the type of religious festivals that they had was found to be identical from place to place. Some people say it was Atlantis. Some people say it was space aliens. I believe it was the Phoenicians, because historically they went from place to place and they traded with the peoples that were around the Mediterranean and beyond. They made it to America. So those are questions that will be answered in this series, I hope. And thank you for participating and bringing up the questions. I'm very grateful.
Thank you.
And now we move on to Brian Walker of Brian's Drive-In Theater. I was a big fan of Brian's for many years, like I was of Tim before we connected and started doing shows together and became friends. Brian's Drive-In Theater has been around for over a quarter of a century now. and it's a shrine for B movies, especially the sword and sandal cinema, which I happen to love, and that's how I find the site in the first place. And today is going to take us down memory lane to retro sci-fi cinema, and we'll learn all about Venetians. Greetings.
Good evening, Hercules. I dug up a number of really fun science fiction movies from the 50s and 60s, all dealing with the Venusians. The first one that I wanted to talk about it was made in Britain, but I hesitate to call it a British film for one particular reason, called Stranger from Venus. It was shot by MGM British Studios. So it was a cut above your typical British film from the mid 1950s. It also starred Helmut Dantine, who is the Venusian in this film, and he lands in a country that's similar to Great Britain, but it has a very unusual tone running through the entire film, in that this particular instance could have happened anywhere. There are characters with American accents, characters with British accents, everything in between. So it's kind of an unusual film. And the filmmakers are very careful not to give you a specific location in the movie. So seemingly it could have happened anywhere, which I thought was an interesting take on it. But in this case, the Venusian, who is Helmut Dantine, comes to Earth to deliver a message or a warning to Earthlings that they must get rid of all nuclear weapons if people around the solar system were to survive. A really fun, compelling movie to watch. Patricia Neal always delivers a really strong performance at any point in her career, beginning, middle, or end. Really good actress, and it's interesting to see what they did with the narrative in this film, and I think it really deserves a watch. It's an easy film to overlook, unfortunately, but I don't think it should be overlooked. I think it's one that you should go out of your way to try to watch. Now, another one that I wanted to talk about is a film that so many people know. It's titled "It Conquered the World," directed by Roger Corman. It Conquered the World, clips from It Conquered the World have been used in so many different movies, everything from Elvira, Mistress of the Dark in the late 1980s to It Came from Hollywood in the early 1980s. It appears a lot because the Venusian in this film is actually not so humanoid and more it looks more like an artichoke than it does a human. Although it does have a few humanoid features, it has these, odd little arms, arm-like things, and it does have a smile, well, a grimace, not a smile, but a grimace on what is sort of its face. It's a really fun movie, but it's got some serious talent behind it. In addition to being directed by Roger Corman in just a few days and shot in Bronson Canyon, the way so many films that were science fiction films were always set there, because it was a pretty easy area to book at the time. Robot Monster was shot in Bronson Canyon. But It Conquers the World stars Peter Graves, one of my favorites, Beverly Garland, has a really meaty role in it. And the actor who gets sucked in by the Venusians' rhetoric via radio signals is Lee Van Cleef, who was a big star of spaghetti westerns in the 1960s, but in the 50s, did several turns in film noir. He's in some horror, some science fiction. A really engaging actor, fun to watch. Sally Frazier is also in this film, and two of Roger Corman's regulars, Dick Miller and Jonathan Hayes. Dick Miller was probably in 300 films during the course of his career, maybe for 2 minutes per film, perhaps. But he, if he wasn't the star, at least he was, in the background quite a bit. And a fun movie to watch. The next film I wanted to talk to is another great 50s science fiction film titled 20 Million Miles to Earth. with William Hopper, who was Paul Drake on TV's Perry Mason in the late 1950s and into the 60s. Joan Taylor is the female lead, and Bart Braverman, who was an actor in the 70s and 80s, is a child actor in this film. It's shot in Italy. The first U.S. spaceship to Venus crash lands off the coast of Sicily on a return trip, and it brings this lizard-like creature with it. So that's the Venusian in this film, and it quickly grows from something small to something gigantic. And impressively, Ray Harryhausen handled the special effects for the film. And he's one of the reasons that it was shot in Italy. He had always wanted to go, but had never had the time or maybe the money. And the production crews managed to wrangle, some location shooting, and it's shot in Rome and in Los Angeles. Most of it is shot in and around Rome, however. And some very good special effects, I have to say. Much better than It Conquered the World, which I once watched an interview with Beverly Garland about It Conquered the World, and she referred to the monster as a Meshuggah. And it is. Queen of Outer Space is another film that deals with Venusians, and it's sort of a notorious science fiction film. It's a title that a lot of people are familiar with, but I don't think that many people have actually watched the movie. It stars Eric Fleming from Rawhide, and most notoriously, it stars Zsa Zsa Gabor as the heroine in the film. Laurie Mitchell, Lisa Davis, and Joy Lansing is in a really small, uncredited role in the film, but it's a showy role, even at that. The film used props from World Without End and Forbidden Planet, two big mid-50s sci-fi films. World Without End was directed by Edward Burns, who also directed Queen of Outer Space, but he directed the Three Stooges Meet Hercules. So Hercules, I thought you would be interested in that little tidbit. And he also did Three Stooges in Orbit. And the Three Stooges do a movie with Venusians, and that's called well, actually they do too. But this one is Have Rocket Will Travel. It's Three Stooges and Jerome Callan. The Three Stooges are custodians at a spaceport, and they accidentally take off and land on Venus and encounter a talking unicorn, a fire-breathing tarantula, and an alien computer that creates evil duplicates of the Stooges themselves. It's a lot of fun to watch. Unfortunately, the films that I've talked about so far are not public domain. The next one is, however, and that is First Spaceship on Venus. It's a really interesting production. It stars Yoko Tani.
Just to let you know.
Pardon me?
We have 2 minutes.
Okay. First Spaceship on Venus stars Yoko Tani, who was a Japanese actress from the 50s and 60s. Did a lot of international productions, and she is the star of the film. Here she has top billing. It is public domain, but it was an East German Polish production. And initially, the East German producer, who had to get everything okayed by the government in order to make the film, wanted to do a spectacle, and it is well done. I mean, the special effects look good. It's shot in color, but when they were searching for a partner in order to get more money, they initially approached some French investors, and with the promise that they would cast Yves Montand and Simone Signoret. Back then, they were sort of the Bogey and Bacall of France. They did a lot of film noir, and I don't know that anybody had ever really asked those two actors if they wanted if they wanted to be in this movie. But it is a really fascinating film to watch. The special effects are quite good. It looks much better than most films of its type. And finally, I wanted to talk just briefly about Voyage to the Planet of Prehistoric Women. It's based on a 1962 Soviet film about a trip to Venus. And it is interspersed with newer shots done in Hollywood of Mamie Van Doren and director Del Tenney's wife, Margot Hartman, in these really inexplicable beach shots where they're wearing. It's a strange film. It's campy as all get out, but I can't say that it's entertaining. I would say it's Mamie Van Doren's worst film, and it's also I can't think of the director's name. Peter Bogdanovich is probably his worst film too, because he shot the new scenes for the 1968 version with Mamie Van Doren. 4 years later, he was directing things such as What's Up, Doc, which is just a brilliant screwball comedy. But just a few years before, he's doing things like this to survive.
Brian, thank you so very much. For those who aren't familiar with Brian's site, it's very retro because when it was created, it was retro. And he's been
the HTML is vintage too.
Yeah, now it's vintage, but he's updated and polished it up, but it still is very retro. So if you want a retro experience with movies, I recommend this site very highly.
My code is very retro, trust me.
And effectively so. And now Tillie Treadwell will pick up some of the threads that people have woven and tie them all up into a neat bow.
Absolutely, or at least I'll try anyways. Firstly, thank you very much for having me on tonight. It is such an honor and a pleasure to be here, and I sincerely appreciate it. Secondly, I propose a toast to our friend Alan. Here's to here's to great tales and greater times, my friend. Thank you for being here, and thank you for helping our friend Tim. So, to begin, men are from Mars and women are from Venus, the old saying goes. Although certainly some may agree and others may entirely object, I do believe that there's something to the notion that some people may well be here from other places, times, vibrations, densities, or maybe even what we call planets, just like Mars or Venus. Assuredly, I am in popular company with this belief. One such vocal believer in Venusians is Gigi Young. She is a YouTube channel hostess with a focus on spirituality, alleged alien peoples, and spiritual human evolution here on Earth, whatever, wherever, whenever, whyever Earth is. Although I've just discovered her Venusians on Earth video this week, she was speaking about this topic 2 years ago at minimum, and the comments section on this particular upload are filled with people claiming to be Venusian, insisting that they may be Venusian, or to be direct contactees of Venusian people. In good timing for my needs, this comment section in particular led me to find other allegedly true Venusian contactees. Thanks to the comments on Gigi's video, I stumbled upon the tale of Carla Rucker, who seemed to be an ordinary girl invited on an extraordinary adventure. It is said that Carla began receiving in 1981 what she asserted were telepathic messages from the group consciousness of the people who inhabited the higher vibration or dimension of Venus. This group consciousness, she said, called itself Ra and claimed to have crucial information for humankind. The messages flowed freely until 1984. She put forth that Ra wanted to share with humankind how to end their repeated reincarnation here on Earth, essentially communicating to Carla that they wanted to help humankind evolve past the 3D, should they like to. Carla stated on record that the Venusians had told her that they'd lived on Venus long ago and had evolved over time to be of a much lighter density. She said that they were coming back to help humanity achieve now what they had long ago. For this mission, Carla had a small team, if what I found is correct. There was Miss Rucker, the contactee, Jim, who recorded both on tape and paper the transmissions, and Don, who held the duty of interviewing Carla when she was in contact with Ra. Most, if not all, of the sessions were apparently conducted in a Q&A format. It is asserted by at least one source that I found that Carla was used as a direct physical vessel for Ra, who allegedly spoke through her body in a type of verbal physical channeling. Photos available online right now seem to depict that during her sessions, Carla laid on her back on a type of cot, and to seemingly guard against demons or other harmful entities, she conducted the sessions with an open Bible above her head on a small stand. What I find most intriguing about this case is that it went on for a number of years, resulting in many recordings and writings, including a book called The Material of Ra, a tome that fully explained what I call vibrational science, or the science of personal evolution through one's individual combination of lived lifetimes, locations, densities, personal philosophies, choices, and the balance or lack thereof between the results of what one has allowed, condoned, endorsed, encouraged, and what one has not allowed, condoned, endorsed, or encouraged. This gets into my own philosophy of boundaries, what I have named spiritual separation, a practice and state of unconditional love from a spiritual point of view that supports and allows each person to choose their own experiences and path in life free of interference from me unless invited or attacked unprovoked, and vice versa, which results in every person having their own space, time, and freedom to live however they choose, reaping the natural, social, karmic, and or other consequences of each of those choices over time as fit for the chosen journey. It includes learning and or developing one's own vibrational match in language, emotionally, verbally, psychologically, aesthetically, and more, and learning those of others, and then learning how to speak and use each in order to create a lifetime of one's own design. In my own belief and social moral system, I regard each subjective viewpoint and action as having at least some objective value in it, and have genuine empathy, to one degree or another, for every possible choice, opinion, need, preference, etc., no matter how they may differ from my own or clash with my own ideals, preferred actions, needs, or desires. Like the law of one, which I will detail more fully from her alleged channeling in just a moment, I too assert that every choice, opinion, possibility, action, feeling, interpretation, and philosophy is absolutely necessary to create life experiences, lessons, interpretations, and opportunities as varied and useful as they are, here and elsewhere, elsewhen too. This, I believe, creates the tapestry of life, an infinite network of opportunities for growth, overcoming challenges, and learning opportunities. I believe that with love, respect, and boundaries that protect and forward one's own adventure, all is possible, maybe even likely. This and more add up to what I call the quantum quilt. But that's perhaps another chat for another night.
We have like 3 minutes.
Lovely. Tea and or coffee recommended for sitting through that. Carla went on to detail what she and or Ra repeatedly called the law of one, an alleged law of incarnation that insists one's evolution through the densities relies on one's ability and willingness to love and serve others instead of oneself at least half of the time. It states that if someone is in service to others at least half of the time, they will move on to a lighter density, and that if they are in service to self about 90% of the time, they will move on negatively in density. Like myself, the law of one teaches that there is no true objectively good guy or bad guy, since that is subjective, aka opinion-based, that there is only identity and the qualities, patterns, and or characteristics within the identity. In essence, to each their own vibrations and adventures. Carla/Ra went on to detail the densities, otherwise named vibrations, claiming that they begin at the first and most dense existence, the elements, which is apparently only consciousness itself, and proceeds upwards until the seventh density, said to be the lightest, the gateway, approaching infinity. It was said in these sessions, too, that each vibration has its own incarnate bodily compositions, types, and densities made to perfectly match the vibration and its details. 2, there is a portion of the books that teaches about the wanderers, alleged non-human people who come to Earth in order to assist humankind in education and evolution. The material is still available today, and I do recommend giving it a read if anyone is interested in this type of philosophy and theory. Surely my brief description here is unable to capture the fullness, the richness of it. In the comment section, I'll post my resource links for you to explore as well, should you like. I find the supposed messages from the Venusians to Carla fascinating in their own right, and they further interest me because they align with what I myself have been told from multiple sources and have seemed to intuit personally over the years of my lifetime. Perhaps, too, Carla Rucker, my own sources, and I aren't alone, as people like Dolores Cannon and reportedly the Buddha have asserted astonishingly similar information and theories according to records. Have I and we also been Venusian contactees? Carla herself was involved in many areas of philosophy, UFO study, and much more. She and a group of others, including both Don and Jim, founded LL Research, where it seemed to me many strides were made. According to llresearch.org, quote, Carla L. Ruckert McCarthy was born on July 16, 1943 in Lake Forest, Illinois. She completed her bachelor's degree in English literature at the University of Louisville in 1966 and earned her master's degree in library service in 1971. She served as a librarian and bibliographer to college and school libraries for 6 years. Carla was a meditator with the group Don started in early 1962 and became partners with Don in 1968. Should anyone wish, I will link the rest of that piece down below.
Or you could address
I'm
it.
sorry?
Or you could bring it up in part 2 of this conversation.
Absolutely, if you'd like. As a closing note, she actually did pass away on April 17th, 2015, unfortunately, though it sounds to me like she would be a fascinating person to sit down with.
And you,
So,
and you, Carla, she and I spent many hours on the telephone.
did you really?
She was sick, and so the interview that I had scheduled with her on my podcast way back when didn't happen, but I interviewed Don, and he went over the whole history. And the raw material is several different volumes now, and the Wanderer section became a whole big thick book on wanderers. And
Oh, wow.
wanderers are people who are born into bodies rather than being walk-ins like Marc. Alternate path to touching the earth. Thank you very much, Tillie. As always, a lot of information, quality information, and I'm looking forward to exploring your philosophies very much as well. So we'll have to schedule an interview so that we can get into your cosmic beliefs.
As you wish.
And now, unfortunately, our conversation draws to a close, and we're going to go around and everybody can give their contact information. And we'll start with Nick, light worker or light warrior. You're muted, Nick.
Oh.
You're muted, Nick.
Whoops. Sorry, guys. My email address, I'm going to give you that. And any comments or questions, I would welcome that. My email address is NICKNYNY1, and that's the numeral 1 at gmail.com. Again, Nick, NYNY1 at gmail.com. And my group is Disclosure Network New York, now celebrating our 24th year of UFO research in Manhattan.
Thank you so very much, Nick. Marc and Phyllis, how can people contact you and enter your world? And when will those books come out?
Trying to unmute this thing. We're working on the books right today, actually. And hopefully this before Christmas. We'd like one out before Christmas of this year. Hey, Nick, I meant to say before, the Earth will not be allowed to be blown up ever. We promised that in the high realm. So they talked about that in 1952, and with the other aliens that came, and I was part of their crew that we flew around by the Capitol back in 1952. So before I was born, right, before Earth's time. So we got our main website is intergalacticmission.com. Then it's etuniversalzone.com, where you can go archives with our shows and interviews with Hercules and everything. And marcbrinkerhoff.com is MarcBrinkerhoff.com. And that's my art site I'm a self-taught artist. I brought art with me. And we have Facebook and we have YouTube, the same name. And their email is marcbrinkerhoff@yahoo.com on all of them. MARC. Yeah.
Thank you. We feel cheated having all the like little words coming from Phyllis today, but
No, she wanted me to get into lifestyles on Venus, which we can hit on next time. The way that we do things and how I was there. Oh gosh, I was there. Well, I was training students how to work the scouts with telepathy and how you log into them. And you would have a lot of fun hearing about that. Well, yeah, before I came to Earth, like we're talking Atlantean times, way back, 50,000 plus years ago. But on Venus, it's an etheric level. I'm not talking dense physical where I was, but there are people there physical, but they're inside the planet. So we could touch on that next time.
Next time, yes, we'll pick up where everybody left off. Thank you very much, Marc.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Always great to be taken to higher dimensions and other spaces.
Well, Hercules, I'm sorry. I'm talking from my own life experiences.
And that's what I appreciate. Thank you.
That's it. I love you guys. I love you guys. Tim, I'm so sorry. Our condolences are with you and your family.
And Tim, the legendary Tim, how can people contact you and experience the wonderful things that are published by Zontar Press? And I am a proud Zontar Press author, so I proudly proclaim it.
Yes, you are, and always happy to have you participating in our books. And Tillie is going to be one of our new authors as well in our new publications whenever we get those finished. But if you want to read our current books, you can just type in my name, Tim R. Swartz, at Amazon.com. That's probably the best place that you'll be able to find everything, and they'll all come tumbling out for your reading pleasure. Our most recent book is Mimics: The Others Among Us, and Hercules has an excellent chapter in this book. My website is conspiracyjournal.com, and don't let the name conspiracy fool you. We deal mostly with, UFOs and ghosts and cryptids and all the fun and interesting stuff, and none of that political crap, which seems to have taken over the word conspiracy. But that's conspiracyjournal.com, and you'll find my email and the emails of some of our other authors there as well. And Hercules, as always, thank you for having me on tonight's show. It was a great pleasure, and I just really enjoy participating and listening to everyone speak tonight.
Thank you very much. Your presence is always welcome and greatly appreciated. And last but not least, we still have to go to Brian and Tillie. I'm sorry. Brian.
If you want to interact with me on social media, I'm a lurker on the app formerly known as Twitter, but I am very active on Facebook. If you run a search in Facebook for Brian's Drive-In Theater or Brian Welker, you will eventually find me. And please visit the Drive-In Theater website at briansdriveintheater.com.
Thank you very much, sir. And Tillie, how can people enter your world?
Hello. All right, my friends. Well, so far, if you'd like to interact with me, you can email me at talktillie2me@gmail.com. Right now, that's the only way to reach me, but I am working on a website. It's about halfway done, and hopefully I will have it up and running here soon. Outside of that, I am pretty excited to announce that, yes, indeed, I am going to be a writer with Zontar Press, and I'm working on some awesome things for the next book. And I will be appearing on October 4th on the Inquiries into Our Reality podcast. So that'll be another show. Thank you very much. That'll be another show that I will be a guest on, and hopefully I'll be doing a lot more work with Open Minds Media, as well as my dear Hercules here soon. So that's what's going on with me. That's the best I got for you right now, my love.
Thank you. And if you let me know a link to the show that you're doing, wherever you're doing, it doesn't have to be with me. Anywhere you're doing a show, I'd be more than happy to promote it on. My-
Oh, that sounds lovely. Peachy Keen, my king. I appreciate it.
Wow, how can we beat that? Thank you very much, Tillie.
You're welcome.
In closing, before we go, the association between the gods and the planets is very old. In fact, the planet names that we have are based after the Roman versions of the Greek gods. The Greeks saw the gods and the Romans after them as they were wandering stars. So the planets wouldn't do what the normal fixed sky would do, which kind of went back and forth a little bit depending on the seasons. The planets moved around seemingly on their own and did weird things in the sky. So eventually they figured out the patterns, but until they did, they attributed free will to the planets. And each planet had a deity, and there were different types of spirits that lived with the deity. And in some Roman literature, these are even identified as spherical outer space bodies. Whereas earlier writings, it was the sky was the limit. And if you went past the sky, you entered another dimension. Venus was called Aphrodite, the foam-born, one of the primordials, and she had an aspect called Aphrodite Urania, which means heavenly Aphrodite. And rather than being associated with some of her more sexual aspects, this was a heavenly Aphrodite who had like a higher form of teaching. And according to the lore, she had two different types of entities that were very much associated with her, one of whom, the Charitas, or the Graces, are very reminiscent of the Venusians that are reported in the contactee literature. They're very beautiful, they were very graceful, they were communicators, and mostly in the plastic art, they're female. But in the stories, I believe they're both male and female. And also you had the Erotes and the Eros image. Eros in the mythology is both older and younger than Aphrodite, and in some he's her son. But we get the image of Eros on Valentine's Day, the Cupid, and the Cupids are cherubim. So these are mighty, very high order of angel. An angel meant messenger in between spirit, who was a messenger between the heavens and earth. So she had the cherubim and the Charitas as part of her train. And again, whatever the answer to Tim's questions are, and we'll keep exploring them, this is a very old thing that has been going on since the dawn of time. And I'll end here because we have no more time left for the show. But to be continued. Thanks to our wonderful audience. Again, this show is dedicated to Timothy Green Beckley and the beloved friend and relative of Tim Swartz. So thank you for tuning in. Until next time, this is us wishing you joyous journeys and amazing adventures. Thank you, everybody.
All right, much love.
Thank
Bye.
you.